If we hire 3 more consultants, it's going to get really crowded in here.
Yeah. And even just the team lineup drawings. I just redid the lineup drawing that goes across our newsletter, and I'm like, man, we got to either that or we got to start hiring really small people.
We can start stacking.
Yeah.
Like when photos, family photos, when somebody has to go across, Brent will hold you across the team lineup.
You just Brady Bunch it, give everyone a little square.
Oh yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Richie says unsubscribe. All right, I guess it's about that time, so maybe we should jump in there. Guys, we're looking a little empty on the questions, so feel free, don't be shy. It's hard as a bite.
We're all just starstruck. Oh my God, we got another new one in here! Wow!
All right, you're in sunny California, right?
Yes, San Diego.
Oh, that's so great. I'm in Chicago along with Brent, and it's been snowing, and the snow is now frozen and stuck to the ground. So now it's sunny out, but the snow is stuck to the ground, and there's black ice. So you go to get your groceries, and you just fall on your ass. So.
Or you go to walk the dog, or yeah. I feel so sorry for Ernie. We went to the park, and she's walking along, and her legs just start sliding apart. Poor girl. Oh, poor thing.
All right, so let's jump in there. We got a question here from Bob. He says that they are planning to deploy a Hyper-V server, which will host several SQL Server VMs. For best performance, should we store each VM database and log files on a separate one, or can we place them all on the same one? And what about TempDB?
Usually the biggest driver on this is, are you going to do snapshot backups? So there's a lot of products out there that'll do snapshot backups, and they have very specific requirements around where you place the data and log files, whether you're on physical machines or whether you're in Hyper-V or VMware. So that would be the first thing that I would ask my sysadmins, are we considering doing snapshots, and if so, what are the requirements for my snapshot software? Because sometimes that'll dictate where you put your data and log files. In terms of sheer performance, like I want to make my reads as fast as possible, pro tip, don't read from disk. When you have to read from disk, it's going to be slow regardless of how you arrange your data and log files. So I'm usually more focused on what's the right memory allocation for this guy rather than do I split up my data and log files.
Anyone else?
No, that's good.
Doug goes, thumbs up.
Yeah. +1.
Pass.
He's added value for the day.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Made my big contribution.
That's how I decide to choose who we're going to hire. Is I just say, if I say something, will they say +1? Okay, you're in. Let's do this.
Let's see. Question from Sean. I often find my query plans that top-end sorts are the most expensive operations. What techniques can we use to reduce the cost of these sorts?
It kind of depends on why they're showing up, right? Because like sometimes SQL will throw in a top-end sort just for no apparent reason. Like there's no top in your query. You're not like doing like an aggregation or anything, and one just shows up. So if it's a top-end sort and you're actually top-end sorting, then you can usually fix it with an index. If you just, index appropriately, that sort will be supported by the index. You don't have to worry about SQL taking an extra step to sort your data. So look at what you're sorting and figure out if you can index for it, is my general advice on that.
I like it. +1.
Yes.
That's going to be that kind of day, isn't it?
Yes. -2.
Well, it's like there are so many people here. Someone else should answer.
I like
People point at different windows.
Not it.
All right, let's take a question about SP Blitzcash. Or Blitzcash. Now German. It's from Greg Smith, and he asks, SP Blitzcash is returning 2,500 plans are present for a single query. I get 3 rows that say multiple plans when I run from the script, and then he's provided the link. Insert each query hash one at a time. I get no rows returned. Is he missing anything?
Yes, you're missing the rows that should be returned. That's not. That should actually work. I've used that in the past. Sometimes people will do things like single quote the query hash that doesn't need to be single quoted. but that most likely is what I'd look at. If not, if it's not a single quote deal, send us the example output of what you're seeing, like screenshots of it, and we may be able to dig deeper too. And to send us that kind of question, go to brentozar.com and click Contact up at the top. brentozar.com, click Contact, put in your info there. You won't be able to attach a screenshot inside the web UI, but we've also got our email address on there, which is help@brentozar.com.
Question from Tom. What is the best method or tool to keep a history of DDL changes in a database? Someone.
Yeah, so in Kendra talks a lot about using DDL triggers. So she used to use DDL triggers, and there's some kind of gotcha. I'm gonna say this out loud, and somebody's gonna be able to pronounce it better than me. There's a Israeli blogger, Maria Zakurdiev. If you search for DDL triggers Maria SQL blog, she has a blog post explaining some of the gotchas involved with DDL triggers, like when they cause your queries to break. I don't remember the scenario off the top of my head, but that'll get you there. DDL triggers Maria SQL blog. And I could actually spell her name out, but who has time for that? In terms of how I would, if DDL triggers don't work for that, do you guys have any ideas of how you would? I mean, chain down permissions, but.
I mean, if you're just looking to log it and you are on enterprise and you feel like dealing with the overhead of change data capture, go for it.
Yeah, there's also
that's a pretty ugly solution.
Yeah, there's also really kind of in high compliance environments, you can get auditing software that will keep an eye on absolutely everything, including DDL stuff. But that gets to be pretty hardcore too.
I think there's a company called Green SQL that does some compliance auditing stuff. They might log that, but I'm not sure off the top of my head because I've never used it. I know they do data encryption or masking stuff, but.
Yeah, I don't think any of us have seen a client with it, but I've heard just that people are using Green SQL. And I don't think it's terribly expensive. I think it's like $1,000 or $2,000 a server or something like that. I don't think it's too bad.
Yeah. Bryant McLennan is mentioning source control, which is fine as long as you can count on everyone checking their stuff in.
Yeah.
Good luck herding those cats.
Yeah.
Question from Chris. Do you recommend running virus software on dedicated SQL servers?
Two camps on this one. What do you guys think?
How many people raise your hand if you vote yes? How many people vote no?
Yes, but.
Yes, but. Okay. Tara, go ahead. Yes, but.
Yeah, having exceptions so that it doesn't scan certain file extensions.
MDF, LDF, NDF, trace flags if you use that. Generally, the reason why a lot of people say no is that it can cause problems. The only time where I'm kind of like raising my hand is that I see what you yo-yos do on your SQL servers. You remote desktop in, you run web browsers, you look at our site, you surf YouTube, because the SQL server is the one server that's not behind a firewall, so you do all kinds of nasty things. Or you got those consultants who don't know what they're doing. I'm pointing at Doug over there. You have those consultants who don't know what they're doing, and they remote desktop in and do it. So I kind of am okay with running antivirus in environments like that. If it was my SQL server, and I know I'm the only one who goes in there and touches it, like I'm in a really tiny shop, maybe I probably wouldn't run it. But I just don't trust the other people who are in the shop.
Yeah, I don't like it because even though you can carve out exceptions, sometimes people forget to do one of those exception groups. Like they'll do the MDF, LDF, they'll forget SQL Server.exe. The other thing is, theoretically, the SQL Server should be stashed in the very deepest part of your network, exposure-wise. So if you've got a SQL Server that somehow gets compromised, chances are all the servers that touch it were the source of where that came from. So, basically, if the very most secure part of your network is hosed, then your network is hosed.
The one time that I would say you should run it is if you let it, so there are some environments where users actually have to upload a file that gets loaded into SQL, like a text or CSV file, and in that case I would have virus scanning run for whatever directory they're allowed or directories they're allowed to upload to.
I like
Also,
it.
That would make it pretty
there-
specific as to what I'm looking for.
Don't you have to be careful if you're doing clustering because certain products aren't cluster aware? At least last time I saw, also depending on your versioning. So.
+1.
My God, what have I done?
You ruined us all, Doug.
Tim has a stupid question.
Yay.
Is there any version of the Stack Overflow database that one can access in order to run a lot of the example queries you guys write for us? If so, where can he find it?
Absolutely. If you go to brentozar.com/go/query-stack, brentozar.com/go/query-stack, I've published it up on BitTorrent, which does mean you have to go do, nefarious things in order to get a copy of this. This is where the, MP3s live, so to speak. But so you probably don't want to do it at work. You want to do it at home, and it'll take a day or two to download because it's like, 15 gigs, 20 gigs, something like that when it's compressed. When you uncompress it, it blows up to like 60, 70 gigs. But it's totally open source. You can go download that and play with it. So brentozar.com/go/query-stack.
Let's see. Dennis is running a DBCC CHECKDB for the first time on a client's 1 terabyte database. This takes over 6 hours. Is there an alternative?
No, but there are sneakier ways to do it. So one thing you can do is, well, what I would usually do when I had really big databases, it was first off I would offload it to another server where it didn't matter. So if you just stick it on like some development server and you restore your full backup, DBCC check it there. Who cares how long it takes or what it does? If you have to DBCC check it in production, you can try physical only and see if it comes up with anything and run that more regularly and then run the full DBCC check like once a month or so. Besides that, you can break the DBCC check up into different components. So there's like check table, check file, or check alloc, and check file group, I think, which if you run all those DBCC commands separately, you'll eventually get a full DBCC CheckDB out of it, but they take a little bit less time. There are also a couple of trace flags that made a little bit more of a difference in prior versions of SQL. I think they were like 2549 and brain farting on the other one.
And 6 hours for a terabyte really isn't that bad. I mean, that's not a bad number for a database that size. The other nice thing about restoring it in a development environment and doing it there is if it fails, you get to rehearse your corruption repair efforts there instead of doing it in production. So it's kind of nice.
There's a lot of times I see our recommendations being like, well, in a staging environment. I feel like a lot of people don't have staging environments because a lot of people then go, it'd be a great idea if we had one of those. Does it cost money to put one up? And I mean, why do you think
there's a mentality that staging environments cost a lot of money, but honest to goodness, so like I have a terabyte SSD in my laptop. It was $250, something like that. Just get laptop grade hardware, old desktop grade hardware. You can get a 1 terabyte SSD now so cheap. Sure, it's not going to be fast, but the mechanics will be the same. The work that you're doing will be similar. You get a few of those. VMs are usually a little different. In the normal world, I'd tell people go build virtual machines, but sometimes those are on expensive shared storage. And your sysadmins may say, I can't give you 2 terabytes worth of space to set up, mirroring or whatever. Just go get a couple of cheap desktops. SQL Server Developer Edition is like $50.
Another thing is that, if you ever do a hardware refresh, you can always just, sort of like hand me down the old production server to the developers, because then it's basically already set up for you too. Yeah. You just have to worry about, that new one killing over, I guess.
All right. Chase has a question about purging MSDB. He says, so MSDB hasn't been purged in a system that I took over. I'm preparing to purge job and backup history. What do you think about a lot of the index recommendations out there regarding the impacted MSDB tables?
I have a perfect answer for this. It's not the indexes that make a big difference. What makes the biggest difference is if you track down the store procedure that runs that, and you create a different version of it that uses temp tables instead of table variables to insert data to and do the deletes. It runs nasty fast. I ran into quite a few servers that were in the same situation as yours, and when I'd go to run the regular, like, purge, whatever, history, it would be like dog slow and just never finish. So I'd kill it off. So I killed it off in the middle. I started looking at the stored procedure that they use to delete that information, and it's all table variables, which is garbage slow. So I just, did create the store procedure, gave it a different name, and replaced the table variables with temp tables all the way through, and it was done in about 3 to 5 minutes.
I'm not sure what you did was officially supported by Microsoft.
Screw them. What are they going to do?
But you created your own stored proc. You didn't.
Well, no, I edited the existing one. Well, no, I didn't edit the existing one. I created a copy of it with a different name.
Yes.
It was like Purge History V2.
That's
what
what
it
was, right?
With temp
Yes.
tables.
There
I
you
didn't
go.
go and mess with Microsoft code, except
There
to
you go.
create my own store procedure from it.
I know, so like I see people out there who are like, oh, I'll just index these and make them faster. That part is wildly unsupported. Indexing system tables. Will it work? Sure, but I just want to give you, something that you're going to be able to get supported with. Erik's idea is way much more supported. The other thing you can do, if you search on our blog for it, for like msdb bottleneck, I wrote a blog post about this when I was young and I needed the money, but in there I talk about disabling constraints and doing truncate tables inside there. Again, wildly unsupported, but just if you had to go that way. I purposely don't give you code in there because I'm like, this would get me in trouble if I did that kind of thing, because then I'd have to support it every time you people broke your SQL servers. But
Because there's no code to re-enable them, only the disable code.
yes, womp womp.
You want them back, you're out of luck.
That's $500. Yeah.
All right, Dan has a question pertaining to security. If you have to allow remote access to SQL via the INET, are there any good utilities to auto-block hacking attempts?
Oh boy, are you doing just like a straight remote desktop with an IP address? Because that's probably a bad idea, Genes.
I bet it's even worse. I bet he's opening up port 1433 to the web.
Yeah. So I'm going to give Brent's answer on this one. Denny Cherry wrote a book called Securing SQL Server. Go out and buy it.
One. Yeah, Securing SQL Server by Denny Cherry. It's in either second or third edition now, but quite good. And will open your eyes.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I was doing that all along.
These 3 bad examples he gave, that's my server.
There's a reason that the SA account is only 1 letter off from NSA. Think about it.
Wow.
Mind blown. All right, let's move on to a question from Tammy. For SharePoint 2013, using SQL 2014 availability groups, what is the best way to handle integrated SSRS after a failover? All servers are Windows 2012 R2.
Take it away, Tara.
I like Brent's face.
I can answer availability group questions, but not when it comes to SSRS.
I can answer SSRS questions, but not when it comes to availability groups.
All right, so I'm going to do
Or
something.
SharePoint.
I'm going to give you an answer, and it's probably not going to be correct. But so you said a failover, which means the databases are failing over. There's one of 2 possibilities. One is that you're talking about the databases that SSRS is querying, in which case your query should point to the listener, and it won't be a problem. Or the SSRS configuration databases are in the AG, in which point, if I want to make something highly available, I kind of don't want to put SSRS's stuff in the availability group. I just don't know how that interrelation works. I'd rather have a bunch of standalone SSRS servers that are, say, VMs, so that I can make them highly available that way. And if I lose a whole SSRS box, I'm not screwed. The other boxes can take over. But you've hit the beautiful edge point of where our experience runs dry. That the place that I would go check is PragmaticWorks. PragmaticWorks.com does a lot of stuff with SSRS and business intelligence. They may have somebody who's available to answer that question.
Cool. Brandon wants to know where I get my cool mug.
Ooh. Tara hasn't gotten hers yet. We have an employee welcome. All you have to do is apply for a job, and
Yeah, you can
I
do
know,
that
yeah.
for us.
We
Or you-
ordered a bunch of them, but yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah. Oh, if you work with us, we send you a thank you box that has this stuff in it.
Yeah, if you
So even clients get something before Tara and I do.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I don't know if they get the Justin Bieber puzzles though, but they get them up.
Yeah,
They better not get the giant inflatable pink donut, because
they don't get that either.
off.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Or the company bathrobes. So we have company bathrobes with our.
Those things are practically blankets.
They are phenomenal. They're wonderful.
I'd like to see that on office hours next week. Everybody in their bathroom.
I can make that happen for you right now.
Brent is off to make it happen.
Brent's already gone.
If I was wearing pants, I'd get up and get mine too. But
Oh, goodness.
It's the bathroom equivalent of rich Corinthian leather.
Now everybody knows.
It is.
Wasn't lying about that. See, there we go. Nice company logo on there.
Thank
Yeah.
God.
Sarah and I are looking forward to ours.
Comfy.
Comfortable. Super comfortable whole quality. All right. Raul has a basic question. Where can he find information regarding SQL Server and Azure? Interwebs.
Yeah, Books Online is actually really good. They've invested a ton of work into Books Online with that, so I would start there.
they
Especially
really
because-
want Azure to happen.
Yeah, they want your money. They want your subscription money. It's actually really good.
Hey, can you back up to Azure?
So this Azure's such a tricky word. Oh God, you trolled me. You trolled me. Oh my God. I never want to hear that again. I want to just restore to Azure. I'm going to restore to Azure. Yeah. Inside joke.
While we're on the question, or while we're speaking of books, Chris wants to know if you can recommend a good book on database design.
Lewis Davidson, I think, writes some
Yes.
good ones.
Yeah. Is there any other? He's probably the only one we would recommend, just because it's the only one I've ever read. Lewis Davidson.
The other design books I've read are all like data warehousing design, so probably wouldn't help much.
Yeah. I mean, unless you want data warehousing design ones, then I think it's like the 70-463 Microsoft training kit has a lot of
The data warehouse toolkit, I think,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
If you get the chance to, if you Google for like Lewis Davidson videos or Lewis Davidson presentations, he speaks at SQL Saturdays. I don't think he's been over to SQL Bits yet or not, but anytime you get the chance to see him speak, very funny, enlightening speaker. Smart guy.
All right. Pascal, how can I check correct configuration of my processors in my SQL Server, referring in particular to NUMA mode,
NUMA.
mode?
Where is
SB
this
Blitz. SB Blitz. SB Blitz will tell you whether or not you have NUMA node imbalance problems.
Mm.
Just another one of the many services we provide, including sarcasm.
You would
Plus
not be
one.
the first person who had offline schedulers. Like, I have what?
Why do I only have 20?
Midnight web.
You have vastly overpaid for your licensing.
Check your
Oh.
SKU.
This is SP Blitz surfaces a lot of errors that you wouldn't believe. That so often people get so zoned in on. I think this problem is in an execution plan or is in these indexes, and we'll run SP Blitz. And there's a little line in there. Hey, half your CPUs are offline, or half your memory isn't available. And we.
Happy
That's a huge difference.
All right. Question from Brandon. How important is it to make sure that your allocation unit size is set to 64 kilobytes on your disk partitions for data and log files? Did I say that right?
They're
Yep.
perfect. Yep.
It may not be, depending on what you're running on, because a lot of SANs have SQL Server specific setup guides, and some of them say, you know what, our SAN is smart enough to figure out what's going on. Don't worry about messing with the allocation size. Just leave it at the 4096. We'll take it from there.
Yeah, like a lot of the bit masking stuff that SANs do is pretty advanced, and you don't really want to mess with that and say, nope, I'm overriding you. Because then when you call them up and they're like, this is slow, they're like, we don't care. You did something incredibly dumb.
I told you what to do.
All right, let's take this question on a query plan. This is from John. The query plan shows a warning to the furthest left select operator about implicit conversion. Where can I find the plan where implicit conversion is happening and why it's happening?
Well, usually when there's an implicit conversion warning, it tells you the columns that are involved in it. So you would just have to look at your query text and match up that portion of the issue. The other thing is that implicit conversion doesn't always cause a problem. If you select count in your query, it implicitly converts in the background to count big, which gives you the big int version. So it's not always like if you see a warning where it's like an implicit conversion with like a plan affecting change in it, either from like seek to scan or something, then you might want to look at it a little bit more closely. But not every implicit conversion causes a scan, and not every implicit conversion is because something is going horribly wrong in your life.
You want to make sure you're running the latest SQL Server Management Studio version, because it tends to surface a few more things out of execution plans. Will help you a little bit there. But yeah, look for the yellow bangs over each of the. And generally, when it's implicit conversion, it's the top right operator too. It's like the first thing that happened in the plan. SQL Server's all, I'm gonna scan this table, or this index, and then that you can look to there and see. All right, here's the one I could probably improve.
It also happens a lot if you use case statements or null or coalesce or null if, like some things like that, where data types are a little bit iffy going across. So it's not always like so it's like not always a problem.
Yep.
All right, so Monica is in the market for new hardware. She is shopping for new hardware for our data mart application. Due to enterprise pricing, what can I look at to determine how many cores I actually need? We currently have 24.
How are they doing? Are you pegged at like 90% with 24? Because if you are, then you might need more. If you're significantly lower, then you might be able to deal with less.
The other, if you search for the Microsoft Fast Track Data Warehouse Reference Architecture, and I'll just say that real fast, and I'm sure you wrote it down. Okay, maybe I'll go again slowly. Microsoft Fast Track Data Warehouse Reference Architecture, they give you this formula, big convoluted formula. Basically, it means that your storage has to be able to push at least 200 megabytes per second through per core. So we talk about this in our performance tuning classes at learnfrom.brentozar.com. If you look to see benchmark how fast your storage can actually push data out, and if you can only say get 800 megabytes per second of throughput out of it, you're only going to keep 4 cores busy. So unless you write craptastic code, the CPU is going to be sitting around idle, not doing anything. So the more cores aren't helping there. So then it kind of backs into the way Microsoft does it, is you figure out how fast the storage needs to be in order to keep those cores busy. You end up having to buy a boatload of storage or RAM. If you cache the database in RAM, it's not a problem.
Yeah. Well, that's another factor though, is how much RAM do you need to cache your data set? Is if you really need 3 terabytes, you're going to have to buy that whole boat of cores to support that. You need the 4-way proc and everything.
All right, Phil had an occurrence. Phil.
Call your doctor.
Of a table with 0 rows using reserved 229 gigabytes of data. Other than dropping and recreating the table, is there another way of reclaiming the space? Usual cluster and table rebuild didn't work.
DBCC clean table.
What?
DBCC
is that really a
clean
thing?
Table. That is actually a thing.
What?
When you drop variable length columns from a table, you can run DBCC clean table, and you can even set a batch size,
Okay.
so you can reclaim space. Swear to
Wow.
God, done it in production.
But in staging first, right, Erik?
Nope, not that time.
That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it's
And the other thing that pops up a lot with this is heaps. So when people have a heap and they're doing deletes, unless you do a delete with a tab block, it's not actually going to clear out that space. If you search for heaps on our site, Kendra has a video called Heaps, Performance, and Your Sanity, and it explains some of the gotchas behind heaps.
Cool. Another question from Pascal. What is the correct value for a cost threshold of parallelism in an OLTP environment? The default 5 is a low value or not?
probably.
Yes, we usually say 50 is a good place to start for tuning, but Doug looks eager.
Yeah. I mean, part of it depends on your load, but chances are 5 is too low just because it's been the default for such a long time. Processors are way more powerful than they used to be. So they can handle a lot more than they were able to when that 5 was established as the default. So yeah, like Erik said, chances are you can go 50. If you're a little bit skittish about 50, you can try 25, but 25 is usually a pretty safe bet. The key here is that you don't want a whole bunch of stuff going parallel that really doesn't need to be. So it kind of depends on what your server is doing. If you have a bunch of stuff that you need to kind of raise that bar just to the point where you lose a lot of stuff that can still run fast without going parallel. It's kind of finding that sweet spot for your own server. The 5 is definitely.
One thing you can totally do is run Blitz Cache and look at the cost column and kind of see like the median of where your plan costing is for like your top CPU queries and stuff. So by doing that, you'll kind of have an idea of how much your queries cost and where you want to draw the line. So like, okay, these ones I want to use multiple processors and go fast, and these ones underneath I don't. Another thing that you could do is try tuning your indexes, because a lot of times, no matter what you set cost threshold and max stop to, you will still use a crap load of CX packet if your indexes and queries aren't really tuned that well.
I have to ask one other question too. So Jessica, over your right shoulder, there's some kind of device that looks like some kind of monster jack thing. What exactly is that back there?
This is my cat castle that my cats got for Christmas. It has a hammock. It has like a little hideout for them. It's right next to the window so they can look outside. Angie had pinged me like, hey, your cat castle's on blast right now. I'm like, yeah. Now I officially have a cat house.
I've been thinking about moving my camera over so that we can get the puppy in there.
Oh.
All right. He's totally asleep, and I don't think you'll be able to see him through the crate, but there he is.
No, you can see him.
Yep.
The little lump. He kind of looks like Scrappy Doo right now.
Oh, that's cute.
Who is the best dude?
Nice.
So Brent, you're in New York next week?
I am. We're teaching a week-long, I say the royal we and my teaching a week-long training class it's our senior DBA class of 2016, where we're covering things like always-on availability groups, cluster quorum, troubleshooting methodologies, things like that. We'll be in the beautiful town of Newark and jumping into Manhattan every chance I get all throughout next week.
Cool. So you won't be in office hours?
I will not. No. So I'll leave you guys to just, ogle the cat castle and go from there.
Cool. All right, guys.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Everybody.